Welcome, everybody, back to the Brass Tacks Business Podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to have Rachal Lohr of Firefly Acupuncture on the podcast. Rachel, thanks so much for being on today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So, for everyone listening, Rachal is a guest who's redefining what healthcare can look like for people living with chronic pain and complex conditions. Rachal Lohr holds a master's degree in acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine from Pacific College of Health and Science, and she is currently a doctoral candidate in acupuncture and herbal medicine. She founded Firefly Acupuncture and Wellness to offer a different path, one that is rooted in hope, healing, and real results. Her clinic is often the place people turn to as a last resort, and yet it's where many experience their greatest breakthroughs. With nearly 20 years of experience and more than 75,000 patient treatments, Rachel and her team take time to truly listen, understand each person's unique journey, and create a personalized, multifaceted treatment plan that goes far beyond a single therapy. From acupuncture to other proven modalities, every program is designed with one goal: long-term relief and lasting improvement. At Firefly, people don't just find treatment, they rediscover hope. So, let's welcome Rachel to the podcast. Rachel, I love that you have such a great background, not only in acupuncture, but multiple other therapies, which I definitely want to dive into. But first, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Rachel, kind of how you got into acupuncture and kind of what led to you opening Firefly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been in practice for almost 20 years, but I got into acupuncture and integrative medicine because I was a patient first. Yeah, and that's often the case. So I actually struggled with severe migraines through high school and college, and they could just be debilitating. And they take you out of the game. You're trying to study, focus, hang out with friends, and it just hurt. And so I actually got into discovering integrative medicine that way. So I went to a chiropractor. I found an acupuncturist, and those are the things that actually helped me get better and feel better in the long term. So I didn't have frequent migraines. At one point, I remember in college, I probably had a migraine every day for a couple months. It was that bad. So that's what I decided, the standard care just wasn't working. So that's what led me down that path. So for me, I felt so much better after chiropractic care, and then acupuncture for me really helped to reduce the frequency, helped me have tools and herbal medicine too, tools at the moment to help reduce the severity, of the pain when it came up. So that's really how I got into it. And then I lucked out a little too, is that my sister actually is an acupuncturist and herbal practitioner as well. And she got started down that path a few years before I did. So she was my wonderful guinea pig and guided me into finding that relief in the first place. Yeah. So that's where I started. And that's a common journey, I think, with practitioners is that, you're just like everybody else. You're looking for some kind of relief and answer as well. So that's where I started. And then that's where I actually have, got my bachelor's degree in psychology from Virginia Tech, but I took a big pivot and jumped straight into traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture from there. So while I was in school and everything too, I became the guinea pig and got treatments there, but that's the route I took there. So I went to school in San Diego, and then I'm from here, from Chantilly. So once I finished school and got my master's, I decided to come back to Chantilly and then Loudoun County in order to start my own clinic and start helping people that way, because I personally knew the struggles of having a long-term issue that just never was fully managed or touched. So,
Understood.
yeah.
I'm glad you brought up being a guinea pig, because that is so commonly people ask me that question, like, how'd you start learning to adjust people? I'm like, well, you're a guinea pig in the beginning, like all your classmates and all your roommates in
Indeed.
grad school. You're
Yeah,
basically just a guinea pig for 3 or
that's
4
right.
years, which reminds me, my staff Steph is going to be watching this, and she's in acupuncture school currently. And so I'm always asking her, I'm like, you need to practice on me. I'll be your guinea pig. So
Right.
Steph, I know you're listening. You need to start practicing and I will be the guinea pig. So it is very common that that happens. But
It's the best way to
Rachel,
win. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Let's rewind, Rachel. What was, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners have migraines, they suffer from headaches. What were some of the kind of standards of care that you were trying that you just weren't getting great results with until you found acupuncture and chiropractic that helped with your migraines? What kind
Right.
of things were
I
didn't
mean,
work for you?
typically, you'll go in and get, they'll just give you medication, and then they'll give some maybe minor dietary adjustments or things like that. I actually, part of mine was that my eyes were changing, my vision was changing, and that was never even a thought, to address it until I kind of came up with it myself. And so I ended up going to, get my eyes checked, and that kind of thing. But typically it's just like pain relievers and then a step up, like more serious migraine medication. Truly, that was about it. Maybe a little hormonal regulation, but it was like, oh, well, yeah, that comes up, as you're moving through your hormonal cycles or that kind of thing. But yeah, that's common. To be honest, that was it. It was like, okay, well, maybe exercise or just prepare yourself to modify your life and just know you need to go sit in a dark room when it comes up.
And what were your migraines like? Because I know everyone's symptoms, some people have, a lot of sensitivity to light. I've had clients that they're like, I am knocked out for 3 days, and they just know they have to be in a dark room and they're calling out of work. How was it for you when you would have a really bad migraine?
I'd often get ocular migraines. So it would be, you know, I'd start to just kind of feel disconnected, tired, exhausted, then get like a knife through my eye, or back of the head, that kind of thing. And then my truly, you don't even almost realize it at the time, but you're almost kind of losing vision or the ability to kind of process what's in front of you. So it would be like a tunnel vision kind of thing, or just kind of a detachment, of that. And then I would get that could launch into severe pain to where I could be nauseous and that whole next level of nauseous, vomiting, light sensitivity, sound sensitivity is a big one. The weather changes would affect me. So I would know, uh-oh, today is not a great day for me. I feel it coming. And then you could just feel yourself descending on that path, so it could go from where it wasn't necessarily severe pain, but it was just that initial onset of like neurologically, I'm not okay, so, or talking to my friends and half understanding what they're saying, and just going, okay, keep going, so it would just put you in this, bubble that's hard to manage, and move through your day and do what you need to do. But then a couple more than a couple times a month, I'd be out of it. I could be missing class or something like that because as soon as it takes you down, it was so severe, I really couldn't move more than a couple feet,
Mm-hmm.
without true vision changes. It was almost like I was looking through a negative, or something like that. So it could get pretty severe.
Yeah.
And so I it was just I felt like I was rolling dice and be like, okay, I'm good until I'm really not, kind of. So with chronic pain, you just learn to muddle through, right? And just go, well, I'm always in pain, but this ain't so bad. So it's fine, keep going until that just your legs get taken out from under you. And so that's kind of where I was. And that's, I think, what generally led me down the road because I could certainly feel for everybody else who suffers with some kind of chronic issue. It can be layered and varied, and you can't just go, well, it's this, let me fix that. It doesn't work that way, so I can tell you, I often tell my patients, that health and pain, and management, our bodies function more like in a spider web rather than a linear line. So, you're pulling on this one string while the rest of your body feels it and is also reacting to that. So I can't just go, well, I have pain. Let me just put a cover on it and it's fine. It didn't work like that and it was really bad. So for me, that's the journey that I took, that I was like, man, this took me years and years to get a handle on. Why shouldn't I help somebody else with that? So I'm a helper. If I found the answer, I think other people should too.
Absolutely.
That's where it led me.
And I think people do underestimate the mental component of migraines. Like it is sometimes just whether it's, the mental fog or just the irritability, it really does make it, you kind of feel incapacitated at some points.
Absolutely. I mean, it just feels like your nervous system's on fire. So if you're so overly stimulated, but it doesn't look like it, right? That you add any other stimulation on there and you've had it. So it could maybe be a little curt, maybe be a little irritated at times, because it's really like somebody's tap dancing on your nervous system. Or
For
with a
sure.
migraine, it feels like maybe your eyeball, or something.
Right. Well, tell us what did you, as you started going, getting acupuncture treatments and seeing the chiropractor, what did you start to notice with your migraines as you started to go through, kind of more holistic treatments?
For me, they were less reactive. So it wasn't a guarantee that I would feel that weather change or know that my hormones were shifting, that here it goes, that kind of thing. So I would say initially, certainly the reactivity was less. And so I could move through my day and my month more smoothly without knowing I was guaranteed to just be unexpectedly out for the count. And then for me, I felt also for migraines that like neck tension, head tension, that kind of thing, I felt lighter. It felt like I had less torque on me all the time. And so when you're able to move through your day like that, your energy goes up, and I felt like I didn't actually think about it all the time, which is actually something I see with my patients as well. So I tell folks that usually I'll hear comments of like, "Oh, I just realized I made it through all this whole day, or I made it till 4 o'clock, without feeling something." I felt exactly the same way, so I get it. It was, so I didn't feel that just looming pressure all the time. And so it was a little more predictable, a little more manageable. And then certainly as, treatments built and my body started to adjust, I didn't have frequent migraines at all, and so they became less and less. And so now it was it was more of a change of I got a migraine rather than when don't I have a migraine, or something like that.
That's a very rewarding point for me as a provider, and maybe for you too, Rachel. So all the patients that are listening, I mean, that's an often thing that, we get in the habit of saying, "Oh, how's your pain today?" or how are you feeling? or how have you been since I've last seen you? And when patients have to think about it and they're like, "Oh yeah, I haven't had a migraine in 2 or 3 weeks." It's like, "Oh, it's working." That's always a rewarding sign versus when patients are always just telling you about their symptoms and their symptoms and their symptoms. So
Absolutely.
I know with over, 75,000 patients and, having 20 years experience, was there a particular patient, Rachel, along the way or a specific, condition that you were just like, finally, you're like, oh yeah, this is definitely what I was,
Mhm.
this is definitely what I was, kind of made to do. And
Yeah.
you were 100% kind of in for acupuncture.
Absolutely. I think stemming from myself and everything too. I mean, I do enjoy treating folks with migraines and headaches and that kind of thing, but certainly I was led down that neurological path, autoimmune issues, that kind of thing. So I really enjoyed treating with and working with folks with like peripheral neuropathy is one of
Mm,
my highlights. Yeah. Just because I often get those reactions, of I felt this is great, or I don't have pins and needles, or that kind of thing. And to me, that's one of the biggest conditions that has no definitive answer. Oftentimes it's a slippery slope where they start to get the neurological degeneration, and it's just progressive. And that just means they go from feeling, some pain, pins and needles, feels like they're wearing a sock all the time, something, or on their hands, gloves, that kind of thing, to all of that creeping up their tips of their fingers or their toes, up their legs and their arms, and losing function, getting weakness, and going from pretty significant pain to no pain which is always a strange backwards feeling where they're like, well, I'm not in pain. Like, yeah, but you're not feeling anything. And that's even worse. So for me, I was drawn to treating those issues. The peripheral neuropathy, I think is really rewarding because I know I actually have many patients that they were on the verge of either not being able to drive or weren't able to drive. And now we can get improvement to where they can drive, or they can go back and ride that bicycle, or they can go on a walk without fatiguing out or hurting or paying for it shortly thereafter. And to me, I love that because they're the folks that are often told, well, this is it. This is their, I'll manage pain here, take some more, medication to just blunt it. Well, and then that's it. There's no possible solution for improvement. You're just going to keep rolling downhill. It's just going to get worse. Accept it. And for me, that's unacceptable. Yeah.
The one I just got the other day was wearing high heels. I can't wear my high heels
Yes.
anymore. And I never knew how important high heel. I'm only 5'7 3/4, so luckily my wife doesn't wear high heels often. But for women that wear high heels, they can't go out and wear a nice dress because they can't wear high heels. And so my one client was like, "Yeah, my feet are so numb and tingly, I can't wear high heels because it just
Mhm.
hurts too much." Or walking barefoot. That's another
Right.
big one I get.
Well, yeah, and it's those simple things that you take for granted, right? When it's not an issue, but it's such a big part of your daily life that it's totally inhibited, So, yeah, especially for those folks and a lot of other folks, with chronic health issues, their world, their bubble gets so much smaller. And that also hits on that, mental health aspect as well. You just feel lonely, you feel isolated, and oftentimes when you have to rely on somebody to drive you, or do something or help you out and, button buttons or things like that, it's really frustrating and, makes people feel really isolated. So that for me pulls at my heart. And that's why I love doing, what I do and working with those folks in particular. Another group of folks I will tell you is also autoimmune issues or autoimmune-like issues like Lyme disease. And now currently, long haul COVID. I've become an expert in that Lyme field because we live in Loudoun County, so from the beginning of my career onward, it has been quite a lesson. I've encountered so many folks that come in and have been everywhere already, and some folks will be struggling for a year, or I've had folks misdiagnosed for a decade with it's often these mystery symptoms, a collection of digestive issues, neurological issues, all blended together. And they're like, well, I have some answers here, but not a full picture, but it's become such a weight, that they're not functional, during the day. And so for me, Lyme and autoimmune issues are top because I've seen so many cases over the years. Yeah.
So for our listeners, Rachel, say they might be dealing with peripheral neuropathy or Lyme or autoimmune, or maybe they know somebody. Can you first explain to us how acupuncture can help with that, and then maybe some of your other modalities that you do as well, and maybe just kind of give us a little background on what acupuncture is, how it kind of helps the body to heal, and then how you use acupuncture with your other modalities to help
Yeah.
patients with these types of conditions?
Well, what acupuncture is doing is really your body's talking to me and telling us what's going on, right? So now acupuncture is just a tool to talk back. So what we're doing is acupuncture stimulates different points on the body in order to stimulate a biochemical reaction and get your body to start healing itself, really. So I liken it to dialing in the right phone number. So there's lots of different acupuncture points on your body, but you need to select them in a very particular manner. Each point has its own function, but until you send that clear, concise message and stimulate, that little neurovascular hotbed to send that message, it could get cloudy, so you don't need, more is not always better. You can have just a few points to send a really great message, but acupuncture works to stimulate different neurotransmitters, pain receptors, body system regulators, that kind of thing. So that's why acupuncture is great for working on neurological regulation and pain relief, and working on regulating immune function and digestive issues and that kind of thing. So it's quite a wide area that it can be effective for, but that's because we can dial into very particular messaging, if you will. So that's what acupuncture, I find, a lot of people know that acupuncture is best for pain relief, but actually it can do so much more too. So for me, while I specialize in acupuncture, it's not always the star of the show. So that's why at our clinic, I structure things the way that I do. So I design very personalized treatment plans for folks because I'm going to use more than acupuncture. Maybe sometimes for a certain issue, yeah, all you need is acupuncture. But oftentimes I will couple in and multiple therapies. And so it's really more of a multi-pronged approach to treating you to get that most effective solution. So with that said, I often use, like I said, acupuncture, but I use a lot of frequency-based treatments. So it's ATP resonance, which is a microcurrent type of treatment. I use electroacupuncture. So I couple the two together, and acupuncture couples with different types of frequencies and intensities and that kind of thing. All very comfortable, even though I'm saying electricity, it's all very low level. I have a lot of people fall asleep, so that's the type of comfort we have. And I actually use ozone therapy as well. So that's activated oxygen. That is more of the main show for like a autoimmune, Lyme disease, that kind of thing. So they have a lot of different varied functions, but overlap, so that way I can blend them together in order to get the best results. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. With those different types of acupuncture and the other therapies, what are some common things that your patients say, after they've gone through a course of treatment or a specific care plan? How do they tend to respond usually if they are dealing with some of these, more complex issues that you're treating?
Yeah. Well, typically we have a high success rate because I actually start by just talking. So initially we always start out with a consultation in order to decide, can I help you and how? And what type of goal are you looking for? And is it attainable? So if I decide yes, then that's when I'll design a care plan. So by doing that, I know that we'll have a very high success rate because I've been there before. I worked through a lot of that, and I know what to expect and how to apply those different therapies. So I have an excellent success rate, with a peripheral neuropathy or autoimmune issues or that kind of thing. Oftentimes, and it depends on what it is, of course, but even with the chronic, progressively degenerative, conditions, we can often make 30 to 50% improvement, across a couple months. With peripheral neuropathy, it's going to take us more time. It'll take us more like 4 to 6 months, something like that. With sciatica, you're pretty good to go in a month or two. It depends on what else is going on. As you know, I'm sure it's not usually just a pinched nerve or something like that, so it depends on how severe the issue is. So the less severe, of course, more acute, less stacked issues, it may take a month or so, and off to the races you go. So most of the time we get excellent improvement, which includes pain relief, reduction of inflammation, improving function, so it just depends on what we're working on. But again, that could include digestive function. I work even with folks who are working on like smoking cessation. So it helps reduce that. So it helps reduce cravings. It helps walk you through and support the reduction of smoking and elimination of it. And I've worked with folks who've smoked for 30 some years and been able to help them completely stop and not feel so overwhelmed throughout the process that they give up, that kind of thing. So short answer, it depends. But oftentimes we see great results by the end of their care plan. And I establish that from the beginning. It's really what I'm saying is that we decide on a goal together and then measure the progress throughout the entire plan. So before we even begin, we have a goal. And then also, I have a lot of testing, in the clinic that at periodic points along the way, we're going to check in order to make sure that we're walking in the right direction. For example, like peripheral neuropathy, I do a sensory test with them, nerve test with them every month or so, and we'll see a progression, go from, you know, 5% improvement to, and it's never a beautiful straight line, never is, but it'll go like this, and improve along the way. So by the end, we'll get 30, 40% sensory function improvement. I've had folks who've made 80% sensory function improvement. It just depends. Yeah, but usually we'll see progress by the end, of course.
Wonderful, Rachel. I'm interested in you brought up, people trying to quit smoking. Is that more in your opinion, is that more like a stress response or a craving for, nicotine, or is it, multifaceted?
All of the above,
Yeah.
multifaceted. Yeah. So it helps kind of regulate that nervous system. So it helps to get that just stress response, that fight or flight mode, down. Typically, it's an ingrained habit and there are triggers for smoking, and trying to really self-medicate, right? And soothe. So we're actually putting, support structures in place so that now we can replace it with healthy habits and that kind of thing. But especially in the beginning of the process, it helps to ease the cravings. It helps to ease the side effects and of that detox process. And so they don't feel so overwhelmed. The anxiety is better managed. Oftentimes you'll see them when you're starting to stop smoking. You may get a lot of phlegm. You may get a lot of coughing. You start to feel that inflammation kick up and irritation because your body's trying to process all of that deeply seated inflammation out. And so we can help with all of that. So it's a layered issues, but that smoking has impacted the body in many different ways in many different body systems. And so we're able to kind of tap into that and kind of clear away the junk out of the road so that we can move forward and help them heal. Because when they're smoking, they're just kind of continually adding more and more congestion to their system, if you will.
So I know you also in your office you see women that are, navigating fertility issues, perimenopause, menopause. What do you guys do at the clinic to help kind of support women going through those types of health challenges?
Yeah. Certainly, I see a lot of women's health concerns, and they often tendril together with those complex issues as well. So I see so many different things. We can help improve painful periods, work with endometriosis issues, fibroids, cysts. You can work on even shrinking those because the acupuncture and all our other different therapies can help to regulate hormones and balance them out. Also, herbal medicine. So I often use that more often to work daily on balancing out the hormones. But I also big time see folks for perimenopause and menopausal issues. When you're getting such a flux in hormonal changes there, you can be kind of tortured, so your body's supposed to change and shift. But if we're grinding gears there, then what we're doing is we help to smooth everything out and allow your body to flow and function the way it really wants to. It's more of comparing it to like a computer. It's a bit stuck on an incorrect default setting. Over many years of stress and life and that kind of thing, so that default setting of the computer has recalibrated or changed. So by working with those, balancing the hormones internally, we're now resetting that default setting and bringing it back to where it's smooth and functional and not feeling worn down and that kind of thing. So it can have an effect on adrenal function, an effect on the nervous system, and effect on, like I said, balancing hormones means that estrogen, progesterone, and that kind of thing. So getting rid of hot flashes, insomnia, exhaustion, body aches and pains. Joints can hurt more when you're in menopause and perimenopause. So I can help mediate all of that. And then with another totally big piece is infertility. So people struggle a lot with fertility issues. And I can help because of we can impact all those things to improve the likelihood of conception. So one, it helps to regulate cycles, and so that's a huge component. So that way we can optimize the likelihood of conception. But I often work with folks for, 6 to 8 months for fertility issues, but I have a lot of acubabies out there. So you just have to, again, balance things out and clear the way, and you can really make a positive impact. And I work with folks from trying naturally to working with IUI, IVF cycles and things like that. We can make improvements, 30, 40% on the possibility of conceiving just by integrating, therapies a couple months in advance, really. And then I support folks all the way through pregnancy, because you get a lot of fun side effects coming through. So tired, aches and pains, different things like that. We help a lot with that. Nausea, morning sickness, and then all the way on the backside too. So once they're prepping for labor and delivery and then getting that sweet little babe, we're here for them. So we work really closely with women in whatever stage of life they're in, but we can really help, optimize their chances of conceiving if that's what their goal is. And then also certainly just helping them feel more like themselves, and not having to live with that pain that crops up with them monthly. It doesn't have to be
Absolutely.
that way. Yeah.
And so I'm interested in the hormonal approach to really affect the hormones, because I've talked to a lot of providers that, they deal a lot with women's health, and a lot of times I hear it's diet and exercise and lifestyle changes. But for you, with the hormonal stuff, is it different acupressure points that are relating to the adrenal glands or the thyroid hormone or the thyroid gland? Is it mainly acupuncture, the route you use to regulate hormones, or some of the other modalities you do to kind of help with hormone regulation?
I'd say acupuncture is a bit more of the lead in that, but the ATP resonance, so that electrical frequency therapy actually works beautifully as well. So typically those are two therapies that I'll use in tandem. And then, like I said, the herbal supplementation, I'm a traditional Chinese medical herbalist. And so I'll use very particular formulations to affect different parts of their cycle, or hormonal fluxes to regulate and manage them out. But to answer your question, yes, there are particular acupuncture points or acupuncture point combinations that affect different hormonal functions. So those adrenal glands, that HPA axis, that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, is a huge one with hormones. And so I can tap right into that to support and regulate a lot of those functions with acupuncture. So it's a tiny little needle, but it can have quite a big effect to communicate with the hormones and tell them where to go and how to do it. So I always liken it, it's more of what we're doing is balancing out different columns of hormone function rather than pushing it one way or the other. I'm trying to find the balance for someone's particular body and makeup rather than going, well, I need that progesterone to go here, or something like that. So I can tell you a lot of issues I see with infertility, or even a lot of like PMS side effects or things like that, are imbalanced estrogen and progesterone function or levels. And so you can directly affect that with acupuncture points, but also herbal medicine and very particular frequencies. And so we move through that while they're here. Yeah.
That's so amazing. So you can, like, it's the ratio, right, of estrogen and progesterone that often gets, so you're able to manipulate that
Huge.
with the different acupuncture points.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Rachel, what do you feel like, is the biggest misconception your patients have when they're coming to you with, say it's they're dealing with infertility, or maybe it's autoimmune or peripheral neuropathy, what are the most common, things you hear, or misconceptions patients have about, what you do or what you can do?
Well, I think I'd say folks have to remember that healing takes time. So, as we were kind of talking about before, if you just injured yourself, then I can probably have you in and out the door in a treatment or two. But if it's more of a long-standing issue, it will take time no matter what therapy you integrate, right? So, I would say it is funny sometimes or oftentimes I'd say it's less so these days, but folks will come in and say, I've been everywhere. I have no solutions. I'm hurting all the time. I went to 20 different doctors, and then they go, okay, fix me. and so, and then I go, okay, it's going to take a couple months. And they go, oh, you can't fix me in 1 or 2 treatments? No, there's a lot going on. And I love that you think I can, but it's a kind of a strange imbalance of, well, does this really work? Well, why can't you fix me in 1 or 2 treatments? I'd say that it's a funny little mixture of things, but that's also why I start out by talking in the first place, is to establish what we can do and how I can do it. But yeah, I'd say, you know, if I could fix folks in a treatment or two, I would, but hormonal issues, autoimmune issues, degenerative issues, joint things, and that kind of thing, they didn't develop overnight. And so they're not going to go away overnight. But that doesn't mean we can't make progress. And that doesn't mean you're not going to feel better within the whole treatment plan. You will. It just won't stick, and hold until you've moved through that whole series and allowed your body to the space and the time to heal, really.
That's such good advice, Rachel. For all of you patients that are listening, that is a very common thing we hear is, why is it going to take 6 months? Why is it going to take 2 months? And I think everyone needs to realize that, I feel like modern medicine has done a very good job of just making people believe that, oh, you have an issue, it can be healed with just a magic pill or a magic, treatment that is, once or twice, and it's just not accurate. It's not, especially for
Right.
chronic conditions, right? Or, things
Exactly.
that have been going on for years and sometimes decades. It's going to take a lot more
Right.
time for those things to heal.
Yeah, conventional medicine has done a lot of good, and we're all used to that magic pill mindset. But if that were the case, why are you here? Why are
Right.
you looking and seeking more help? That means that it's not managed properly and it hasn't hit the mark for you. So conventional medicine has wonderful options, but it often falls short, treating those chronic pains and more complex issues. And that's why we're here to help. But yeah, it's just going to take a minute. Yeah.
Rachel, I want to kind of turn towards the business side of things and ask you kind of how it was opening, Firefly. And you've been in practice for 20 years. How long has Firefly been open?
It's just about 18 years ish.
Wow. And how has that been being a business owner and a provider at the same time? What has that journey been like for you?
It has been a journey. Yeah, for sure. uh, well, I actually started out, when I opened Firefly, I started out in one room, and so I started from one room seeing patients and built up over time to expand it out to a couple of rooms and then a much larger clinic, and that kind of thing. So now we have space for, we have 10 treatment rooms and a treatment lounge, so we can apply various therapies and that kind of thing. But yeah, that didn't come overnight because certainly I was, single mom and had little babies, and that kind of thing starting out early. So I had to, be home, manage them, but also start my own clinic, and see patients and that kind of thing. So it was certainly a, a very delicate juggle, but
Hmm.
you're on the right path when it's just you love being there and you love what you do, and truly seeing the smile on patients' faces when they make improvement. So that's where it really started, was 1 or 2 rooms, and then I was able to expand out. And so I developed systems in the clinic that over time that we really work as a team. So I have patient care coordinators, patient care technicians that assist me. And so we work as a very close-knit team in order to, apply therapies and treatments and move our patients through our treatment plan. So it's quite different from when I started out and it was me. Yeah, just me doing every single thing. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's a lot. So from a business owner, I developed websites to answered phones to, scheduled appointments. And then I switched hats and then I was a practitioner, and that kind of thing. So it was a lot of different hats to put on and off. And so I very thoughtfully developed the systems in my clinic in order for us to run smoothly, to all be on the same page, to all have the expertise to, interact with our patients and have them know that we have their best interest in mind and that we're just driving to help them feel better. Yeah, excellence is, a mantra in my business. I want to exceed expectations with my patients. And so I developed my clinic very particularly to project that, to make people comfortable and know why they're here, and that know that they're in good hands. And so everything in my clinic and in everything in what we do as a team should exude that. And so I established that early on and then use that to drive forward, every day.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Rachel. I'm often telling my staff, I feel like it was just yesterday when I was answering the phones, running around, doing the treatments, doing the exercises, and
Gosh, yeah.
scheduling all the appointments and doing it all. So I know exactly what you mean. How do you feel like you've changed, either as a provider or even a business owner, going from juggling kids at home and, being in practice to now having 10 treatment rooms, staff, and all the other things to manage, um,
Well,
how have you, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I would say actually I feel a lot calmer and smoother, to be honest. And that tells me that my systems are correct.
Mm,
Because initially having to do everything, I think as an owner, business owner and that kind of thing, I should know how to do everything, and step into that. But I had direct experience with it for many, many years. So I would say now it's changed that I don't know all the little ins and outs of all of our, systems and our booking system or that kind of thing. I would say my team is better at talking to patients on the phone, or scheduler, that kind of thing than me now, which feels weird, but that's a great thing. That
yeah.
means that they've stepped into their roles, and really are good at what they do and enjoy what they do. And it allows me to actually step more into my practitioner role and really focus on treatments rather than having the, business side always in the back of my head as well. It doesn't mean I'm not running, all the little things behind the scenes too. But I feel like as I've grown and expanded, all of our systems and the way we communicate in the office has actually made things lighter, and easier. I wish I had functioned a bit more this way when my kids were little than now, but I had to go through those lessons, and figure out the smoothest way to go. Yeah.
It's always so humbling when I have to go, say a staff member's out or they're on vacation and I have to work the front desk and I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
scheduling a patient is, I
Where is
haven't
this
done this in a
again?
while. Guys, how do I do this again? I can't remember. So I'm always telling our clients, I'm like, sorry, so and so is out. I know what I'm doing. It's been a while since I've, set up scheduled a bunch of visits. So it's funny. What would you recommend, or what's one piece of advice you'd give to somebody that's either starting out, in acupuncture, or maybe they're looking to start their own business? What's one piece of advice you'd give them, Rachel?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say lean on and look up systems. So on everything that you do, whether it's being a practitioner, you should know how to develop treatment plans quickly and apply them, and be able to plan them out, knowing what you're doing, and that kind of thing. One, and then two, also setting up a business or a clinic or that kind of thing. When you're able to set up operational systems, it gets everyone on the same page very quickly. So if it's just you can kind of get lax and go, well, I know how to do this. And, I don't have to, you don't have to explain it to anybody because you're the end, you're it. But if you're trying to expand and grow, then you will have to explain it to somebody eventually. It's always good, of course, it's that old see one, do one, teach one kind of thing, be able to do that kind of thing. And so that way you can let go of and expand, a lot of duties and responsibilities out to people who are very capable of doing them. And so don't micromanage, but also onboard help sooner than later, and it will actually pay out in dividends, that kind of thing. So nothing great was ever built alone. So don't do it alone,
For sure.
build
For
a
sure.
great team. Yeah.
What's next for Firefly? Do you guys have anything coming up in the near future? Anything we can tell our listeners about?
Well, we will be at a few events this fall. So nothing in September, but we are going to actually be at the Loudon Academy's car show in downtown Leesburg, the beginning of October. I want to say it's October 4th. And then we will actually be at the Monster Mash in Leesburg Village and the Bark Bash at One Loudon. So we're going to go to those events. So come talk to us, come chat, pick our brains about everything we've been talking about, any issues in particular, that kind of thing. And so that way we can really get out in the community and talk about what we do best and how we can help and that kind of thing. So we'll be at a few of those events in October, and that's what we're up to for now. Yeah.
Where can people find you if they're looking to book an appointment, or if they're dealing with some of these autoimmune or peripheral neuropathy type issues that we've been speaking about? What's the best way to book a visit with you or get in touch with you guys at the office?
Of course. Well, certainly you can always call us. So 703-263-2142. But you can actually schedule online through our website. We have a lot of social media as well, but website's always best, Firefly Acu and wellness.com. We literally have buttons. You can schedule a consult straight from there. You're welcome to email us, and our phone number's on there as well.
Thank you so much for being on, Rachel. We truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure.